All right, thank you once again, panelists, and thank you very much, Dr. Tang. Commercial Director of Southeast Asia in Tiger Spike, Mr. Brandon O'Shaughnessy. And Director for Technology Adoption Program of A-Star, Mr. Lau Eng Soon. And last but not least, we have the moderator of this panel discussion, founder of 99%, Mr. Kelvin So. Now, ladies and gentlemen, once again, if you have a smartphone, a tablet, or a laptop with you, just launch your internet browser, go to phlive.at, key in our event passcode SIPC2013, click go, and fire away your questions. Again, you can also vote for other people's questions if they are the same as yours as well. Questions with more votes will get the panelists' attention, and they will be discussing it. So, the topic once again is realizing business model innovation, the right enablers and motivators. Kelvin, over to you. Panelists, take it away.
Sorry, it's on now. Okay, so thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and together with my panelists, whom I've met for the first time, except for Gwen, we're all very happy to be here. And we're here to talk about innovation versus productivity, right? And we'll all be sharing a little personal story of how, in some way, innovation has helped us in our business. So, being the moderator, I have a little bit of an advantage, so I'll start first. I think for us, if you look at the 21st century, we're looking at exponential growth. So you have 21st century versus 20th century industrial model. So if you think about it, Coca-Cola took 140 years to be a global brand. Facebook took 9. McDonald's took 40 years to be a $91 billion company. Facebook took 9. So if you want exponential growth, you have to adopt some of the principles that come with the 21st century. You cannot stay in the 20th century business model and go, I want exponential growth. In that world, you get incremental growth. So similarly, when you look at Singapore, what got us here has been, look, let's face it, in the 60s and 70s, we were innovative. Then we became highly productive. And productivity now is, again, I say, incremental growth. So we need to go to the next stage of exponential growth. And to that, we just have to apply. I'm sure as we talk about it, our panelists will talk about what are the principles and what are the guidelines, or some of the values that you have to embrace for exponential growth. So from a personal story, how many of you are Singaporeans? Can I see a hand? Okay. So I was born in the late 60s. And I grew up in this world in Singapore where if you don't have a degree, you find it very hard to succeed in life. Okay? And I think in some ways it's still the same now. So when I grew up, I only had 4 O-levels. Went to college, private college, didn't do well. Basically, I had 4 O-levels. So I finished my army, and my father said, I'll mortgage the house, the apartment. We lived in Block 37, Bedok South, 4-room HDB flat. So my dad said, I'm going to mortgage the HDB flat and send you to a university in Australia. By which time, when I came out from army, I was 21 years old. I was wise enough to know if I go to Australia, I would not come back with a degree. I just wouldn't. I knew I might come back a father, okay, but I wouldn't come back with a degree. I was very clear. So I decided not to. So I decided to start off on my own, and my father didn't speak to me for like a year or 2. Okay, so that was the stage where I was at. And this is at the most personal level, 4 O-levels in a country where you need a degree to survive or to get ahead in life. What do? Do you be more productive or do you be more innovative? So at a personal level, that was the decision I took. And I worked in several odd jobs, and somehow I stumbled onto advertising. So my career has been largely for the past 23 years in advertising. And I worked my way up. I did very well. And advertising was all about ideas. It was not about set protocols or guidelines. It's about how fresh, how different, how an idea could make you uncomfortable and stand out, rather than conforming and being the same, because my job was to create ads that would stand out in the newspaper, ads that would compete with news stories, rather than ads that blend into everything else. So that was the culture I grew up and got accustomed to. Okay? But for a person with 4 O-levels, I did very well. Became creative director of Saatchi's in Singapore. And then at age 30, I quit my job to go to America because I wanted to go, okay, I've done Asia. Why not challenge the world's biggest market and figure out how you could do? I was at that stage ranked, #1 by Campaign Brief magazine. So I said, let's try America. So I took a risk to quit the job and then go to America to look for a job, and then found a job with Fallon, which was a very good agency. Came back, started it here. Eventually, 2 years ago, my last position was Vice Chairman and Chief Creative Officer of Publicis Asia. We share about 1,500 people. We had revenues of about 150 million for US for Asia. So it was a big company, relatively. So when it comes to innovation, I've seen it. I've started at a small shop to a big shop, and now I'm currently founder of 99%, which is an SME of 1, me. Okay, I'm the only employee. So I get a lot of some of the fears you have, whether you're a big multinational, or some of the concerns you have, whether you're a small SME, when you talk about innovation, because there's a lot of risk and there's a lot of uncertainty. But one thing I can be clear about is that if you do not innovate, you're not going to do well. I'm being polite. You might not survive. Okay? If you think back about exponential growth, there's also exponential decline. 7 years ago, Nokia was worth $100 billion. Right? Today, well, a month ago, Microsoft bought Nokia for $7 billion. Okay? 2007, Apple launched their iPhone, and BlackBerry went like, come on, no one's going to use the iPhone for business. Everyone likes the touchy-feely, QWERTY kind of thing. Where's BlackBerry now? And where's Apple? If you had bought Apple shares in 1999, 98, when it was about what, $20 US, at a peak it hit $600. That's exponential growth. And that growth is fueled by innovation, not just productivity. So you need a combination of both. If you rely too much on one, you're just going to get incremental growth as opposed to the exponential growth you want. So that's my spiel at a personal level. And hopefully as we talk about this, we all go through our personal stories. You get a feeling that this panel is not trumpeting and talking about it off some guidebook that we all read, but we've actually lived through it. And we also like to then, after we finish this, take a lot of the questions, because it seems like there's a lot of questions here, which is fantastic. So let's spend that time answering to the best of our abilities what your questions are. Maybe we can help you along. Maybe if not, we'll learn along the way. Okay? With that, I'd like to pass it on to Gwen.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. So similar to Kelvin, I've seen a lot of innovation, and specifically in my field, I track technology innovation across the world. So for the last 8-9 years, I've worn both the entrepreneur hat as well as investor hat. I started, so I've never had a real job, according to my parents. I started a site, a blog, a simple blog online 8 years ago, covering technology startups in Singapore and Southeast Asia. That was because we saw there wasn't any, traditional media were not covering startups enough. So we were like, okay, you know what, internet is growing, companies should be online, let's start something to fill that gap. So 1 year later, the Singapore government came to us and they're like, hey, we have $500 million for Internet Sphere for the next 5 years. We'd like you to run a fund to invest in these new innovative startups. So I was very junior, we partnered with experienced serial entrepreneurs and investors, and then we formed the fund. So now fast forward to today, I've run the fund, we've deployed all the capital, we have 35 portfolio companies, 2 exits, a few have died, some are still ongoing. And for the blog that I started, that basically started everything, I turned full-time 2 years ago, and I just sold it 2 months ago to another company. So my personal journey has been one that really is not very different from a lot of my friends. I think a lot of them, after 8 years, they still do not understand what I'm doing. My relatives definitely do not understand. My mom still has trouble explaining. My brother's a lawyer, so when my parents meet their friends, they're like, yeah, my son's a lawyer and my daughter is doing internet. You know, that's it. So people think I'm selling shoes online or clothes, which is nothing wrong, but it's very different. So in my field, I've tracked really the cutting edge stuff. Cutting edge as well as how it relates to commercial viability. So we're talking about, when Calvin spoke about the examples of all the big companies, we track that as well as small startups, how they are doing innovation on the ground. You're talking about, using internet differently to sell to consumers, helping brands reach out differently, basic consumer behavior, tracking how people are using their phones differently and stuff like that, and to tailor business models, new business models to that. So give you an example, there's 7 billion people in the world, right? 4.5 billion have access to working toilets, 6 billion have access to phones. So there are more phones than toilets in the entire world. I mean, to me, this shows that there is a really democratization of internet, the increasing access and speed of, the availability of mobile phones, of technology to people. So I'm interested in all that's here and how it relates to actual startups and companies being able to innovate and use technology wisely. Yep, so that's about it, I think. Thank you.
Okay. So from Gwen's brother, who's a lawyer, to Gwen, who's basically unmarried. That's how her mother would describe her. To Brendan.
Thank you, Calvin. They really picked the panel this year because, like Calvin and Gwen, I left school at 15. I was a hairdresser. So in terms of innovation and reinvention, I'm with these guys all the way. I'm now commercial director for Southeast Asia for a company called Tiger Spike. And Tiger Spike are in the personal mobility technology services space. So what we do is we develop B2B, B2C, and enterprise, increasingly a vast range of enterprise applications for small, medium, and large corporations. And Tiger Spike ourselves qualifies an SME. We've got 200 people globally in 7 offices. And the innovation that's happened that both Calvin and Gwen have touched upon over the last 5 to 6 years has been an innovation wave that we as a company have ridden. Okay, so 5 years ago we had 30 people. Today we have over 200 people. And it's that ability for companies, and we at that time were in the mobile space, probably trying to keep our head above water, trying to stay relevant in an industry which we've been in for about 4 to 5 years, which hadn't really delivered the returns that the co-founders and owners were seeking. And it was somebody else's innovation in the industry which allowed us as a business to leapfrog many of our peers in that space, stay relevant, create a new form of relevancy, and move forward to the point where today we've been in the Deloitte Fast 50 in Australia for the last 7 years. I think the results come out today. We're still in there 7 years running. I think there's only one other Australian company who's done that. And we're hoping to make it eight years running next year. But it's the ability for companies to think about what's relevant to them, what you can bring to your business, what you can bring from outside of your business and apply to your business, which can make the difference. Innovation, and I was looking at some of the questions earlier, and I'm sure some of them will come up in this panel. Innovation is not about doing things differently. Okay, it's about doing different things. Okay, it's not about improving what you're doing, it's about doing it differently. And it's that difference which can make the difference between you being increasingly irrelevant in a world that's changing at the pace we've talked about, and certainly from a technology perspective, what drives our business. But it's the ability, it's that difference to make the relativeness for your business going forward. And I think that's what innovation for me in terms of technology and mobility is. So it's a very fast-paced environment. The way we typically tend to advise our clients in addressing these areas and exploiting these areas of technology for the benefit of their business is to think strategically, but to act tactically. So what I mean by that is, by all accounts, develop your strategic goals, your roadmap over an 18-month, 2-year window. Any further than that is irrelevant. You can't foresee the landscape beyond that time frame. But rather than set up large, complex, long-standing projects, our advice simply is to reflect the pace of change in this industry, and it's an industry which affects us all as business people, is to take small chunks, manage your objectives over that journey, and launch, learn, and iterate time and time again. Because that's the only way. You really should be, when it comes to innovation, I think any business person should be looking at planning for success, expecting some form of failure. And failure is acceptable if you learn from it. And you'll learn more from that, I think, than some of your successes. And certainly when it comes to strategically deploying technology, and mobility technology particularly, that would be the approach we would typically take. So I'm delighted to be here. I want to thank SPI for the invitation today. I'm looking forward to answering some of your questions. Thank you.
All right. So, Brenda, I think that's a really good point. I think too many companies these days are run tactically, and they mistake their tactical short-term goals as your long-term goals. So you hit your targets every 3 months, but you're not having a window beyond 3 months to 6 years. So still have a point of view. What is the business going to be like 2 years from now? But then behave tactically, because short-term you might have to do certain things. The problem is our short-term behavior becomes a long-term behavior. And then after 2 years you realize, oh my God, I'm in worse condition and shape than I've been earlier. You know. So let's now move on to Eng Soon. Oh, and Eng Soon has been very diligent. He actually has slides.
He's got mine.
Yeah.
Wrong slide though. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Eng Soon. I'm from A-Star. A-Star.
Oh, hang on, wrong slides. This
Yeah.
is Brandon's slide.
While I wait for the slide, maybe I just got a short introduction. A-Star, as most of you all think of it, maybe really an agency with a lot of technology, but not really for SME. Maybe that's your viewpoint. We don't blame you for that. But I'm trying here to convince you that we do have program for SME. I'm going to share with you later on it. And the other thing is, maybe you think of A-Star giving scholarship. We do give a lot of scholarship. We go through a newspaper, but we actually got quite a lot of program for SME. Allow me to go through some of it. I think Nokia, this is a Nokia phone. I bet most of y'all, if not all of y'all, at least own a Nokia phone in your life. The reason being, Nokia, 6 years ago, actually owned 40% of the world market in mobile phones. However, now own about 14%. And as mentioned by Brandon, Kelvin earlier, it sold to Microsoft for 7.2 million. There's a drastic change in 6 years. So something must have gone wrong there. What? I think a lot of you have thought about that. Let no need to go there. So what we think of is technology. If technology innovation is like nature. Not only the fittest survive. No, in nature, only the strongest, the fittest survive and pass on. So technology innovations is the same. So what I'm trying to say here is another example, Kodak. I think we all know about it. It was actually one of the 2 big films, camera films then, at time together Fujifilms. Actually, Kodak, as mentioned earlier by one of the speakers, is actually the first company to invent digital camera in 1975. One of the engineers actually invented the digital camera there, presented to management, and guess what the management said? The management said, wow, that's very cute. Can you keep quiet? We are not interested in it. Why? Because the business model then by Kodak was making films. So their business model is making better films, a lot of films, just films. So they never think of it as a possible business model. So guess what? Kodak go bankrupt. So we know that actually the film camera have been totally replaced by digital films. So actually now another question that we have asked ourselves is the point and shoot camera is going to be replaced by a handphone. Why? Because now I saw some of you all taking photo here. Will you bring a point and shoot camera to a seminar like this? You won't. Why? Because you have your camera phone with you. So the value you have to think of is you can pick the best point and shoot camera in the whole world. The best. Every review gives you the best. But if your user don't carry them, you have no value at all. So you might as well think of what do the user carry? Most of them carry a handphone with them. So what can you use with your handphone? Right? Another good example is of course e-books. The physical books and borders, they of course be replaced by Kindle Fire. So now we are talking about business model innovations. I'll share with you an example, maybe an overseas example that all of us know, and then maybe a local SME example. My units actually work a lot with local SMEs. We listen to them, we try to understand their needs, and then we talk through all our researcher and then try to implement technical solution for them. A-Star actually got close to 3,000 researchers from 50 countries. So we do no innovation. The question is, are these innovations applicable to SME? That's our main concern, and maybe that's yours. Amazon is a very prime example. You bring out a few times, but in 2013 second quarter, its sale is 15.7 billion. That's huge. So what is Amazon so different? Amazon start by selling things to consumer. That's their business model. They sell things to consumer. They have a very efficient supply chain, so they don't keep a lot of things. But they still sell things to consumer. But later they realize that, hey, there's another market, you know? So they move on to helping a consumer sell things to another consumer. No? So they become the end commission in between. So there's another business model. Later they realize that there's another market. Now if you go to Amazon, you have a few selections. You can buy the thing from Amazon, Amazon sell it. You can buy a used stuff because someone is selling it. You can also buy from a third party. For example, you buy a computer, a Dell computer, something like that, which is not sold by Amazon, it's sold by Dell. So there's another business avenue for Amazon. So Amazon actually got 3 business revenue, although it's just one website. So pretty amazing. Just so far and so on. I think what I'm trying to sell here is A-Star, we have technology, and we can help you. We have programs to help you to compartmentalize your business, to understand your business more, to help you with that. And by the way, it's free. You're from A-Star. And then with your understanding of your whole process, then we can look into your variable provision, supply chain, and target customer, and from then on, help you to see how can technology help you to move on. I think of interest is, there's these SME companies. Really is a local example. You know, don't talk about Amazon, don't talk about Starbucks, don't talk about anything. This is a local company, a local SME. This local SME actually is an engineering company. So what they do, they sell hardware. They sell monitoring hardware to companies to monitor temperature, monitor anything. So they sell hardware. So what they notice is, it's a tough business. After they sell the hardware, they need to go and find new customer. Because hardware usually can last for a while. Then they have to provide warranty services, etc., etc. They realize that it's a very tough business. So what can they do next? So what they do is they realize that after they sell things to customer, they realize some of the customer have a lot of questions. They need a lot of technical support. So a lot of customers, after buying the hardware, don't know how to use it. So what they do, they re-engineer themselves to become a hardware plus engineering service company. So now they don't sell hardware. They actually sell a service. They call the customer, say, oh, you need to monitor this. What I can do is I can install my monitor on your site. I can monitor for you. I can generate a report. You don't need to worry about it. You know, just pay me a service fee. Don't need to buy my thing some more. So your fee to you is lower. Don't need to worry about it. So they become an engineering service company. Great. So now, they don't need to worry about selling hardware. They don't need to worry about warranty. They don't need to worry about technical support. They just do services. However, they realize something has changed. Now, the better their business, that means the more site they install their sensor, they need to send engineers to the site to collect the data. So, you know, with engineers, it's quite difficult to employ. Foreign labor may be difficult to find. Then COE is hitting the roof, so they need vehicles to get to the site. They realize that cost is going up. How can I do it better? So what they do, they leverage on technology. Okay. So now what? They realize that if they just modify the hardware a bit, put a data transmitting device together with the hardware, just put a SIM card in it. In the local area, just do local Wi-Fi, send it to a centralized device, just 3G it to their control center. That's it. Voila, they don't even need to send engineer to the website anymore. They just go, they just have a central control agency. All the data from all the sites will just send to their central monitoring stations. They know what is happening at all sites. And you know what? Now they don't need to employ as many people. Seriously, they need to have less people. And then now they can sell higher value data to the customer. Because now they call a customer, I can give you real-time data. Is that good or bad? Depending on what business this customer is in. But they can give you real-time business. So with that, they charge a customer higher. So what they do is now they need to employ less people. They need to have less car. They can sell higher value data. So less cost, higher profit. So it's just a real example of a business model innovations of a local company. Something that is very real. So what can A-Star do for you? As I mentioned earlier, A-Star actually got 2 big programs for SME. So we have the GetUp and now as a TAT. GetUp is focused on helping SME upgrade their capabilities. One of our flagship programs under is T-Up. What T-Up do is, if SME have a need, have a project, and you need engineering, you need scientific personnel, what you do is we can actually second our scientists to you, with you only paying 30% of scientist cost, because we got split spring. So there's something very useful. What happened is we actually have scientists that help to company develop new product. We have to set up a new technical department for a company, and actually we transfer technology for overseas as well. Throughout the last 10 years, GET is a 10-year-old program. We actually have seconded 433 RSE research scientists to 251 companies. So if you have needs, A-Star is going to talk to you, do approach us, and we'll try to help you as best as we can. TAP is a new program. TAP is newly launched in July 2013. We'll have our launch event in November. What we do is TAP actually will work with companies, primarily in this 6th sector, and then we'll understand your needs, and we'll go back and find technical solution for you. We have funding to look at research into new solution for you. So my message, A-Star is a high-tech agency, but we do have program for you, and we are willing to talk to you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. So now let me hand it over to Gilbert. Gilbert was supposed to start, but then he's the money guy. So he goes, no, let everyone talk about ideas, then I'll talk to you about funding. Okay, so Gilbert.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Good afternoon, everyone. I come from this organization called the Employment and Employability Institute. And we are not government, in case you wonder, but what we do is we help the government spend money on companies and workers. So I heard earlier on there was a question on funding, and I think there will be probably more in funding, so I will not go into too much detail. But just to give you a quick overview about what we do, my guys are very hardworking. They prepared a whole bunch of slides, but I think I'll just pick a few to run through quickly. Today, of course, there are many concerns in the industry. E2I has been around for about 5 years, and we have been working with workers, the workforce side and the employer side in the past 5 years, and we have heard many comments from 28 days when every worker wanted a job to today where every company wants workers. Very different sides of the same coin. How do we match workers, jobs, and employers? And in that process of doing things, we actually partner companies and workers in 3 key aspects of things. I think that's probably what we'll focus on quickly over the next 3 minutes before we can address the questions. One, it's improving processes, raise productivity, really about how do you make the jobs better jobs. So really that when the job's better job, the company can become more productive, more innovative, where innovation today can be productivity tomorrow and becomes a norm the day after. So how do we get that into place in the company, and how can we support companies through funding schemes, packaging such funding schemes? The second area is in the area of workers. How do we get the correct training programs for the correct workforce, and how do you select the workforce that will meet this need? And relatedly is to make the match meet, make the good worker and the good job meet. I think in a very down-to-earth practical way, how do we get these good jobs and the good workers to meet? It's what E2I does, and very quickly, a few of the programs we do, one of them is this thing called the Inclusive Growth Program. It is actually a very ground-up initiative targeted at companies who just have an idea of what they want to do. It could be innovation, it could be productivity, it could be training. And really, with that, how do I become more competitive, and how do I share some of the gains with our workers? So this program will support up to 50% any cost of the project. And many people ask me, do I qualify? I'm an MNC, I'm an SME, I've got 3 people, I've got 300 people, do I qualify? Basically, if you have a project that can raise the value of a job, make the worker's life better, share gains, you find me a project we cannot support. It's rare. The other aspect, I'll skip all this, the other aspect that we work with many companies is really in the area of skills upgrading. And if you look up there, there's multi-skill, upskill, reskill, that's all our terms. Basically, is how do we give someone the skill sets to be able to enter the job, to do the job better, and to move up within the job. And that's how we do it. And again, we are able to work with you to package programs. Some of them could be in the training provider, some of them could be within in-house on-the-job training, and to focus on certain outcomes and to support you into achieving those outcomes through training. Of course, another case study, I will not go to that. And of course, really the last one, really, we run job fairs, we run professional search services throughout rank and file to technicians to the professionals. So if you need such services, we are here to partner you in it. There's no cost, no charge for any company to do this. Thank you.
All right. So I think we'll move to the next part of this talk, which is question and answers. And we seem to have quite a lot of questions, and based on we're using Pigeonhole, so we get rankings. So if you see some of the questions and you think it's relevant to you, please vote. Then it goes up in the order it appears here, and we'll answer them. Okay. So the first one, let me try to put this up. There are many cases of how innovation helps companies. However, what are the failed examples of innovation, and what can we learn from these? So anyone on the panel would like to start?
I'll start, Calvin.
Okay.
I think, I mean, some obvious ones in a way, and I think it's not so much a failure of innovation. So many examples I would use, but it's an example of companies being innovative, either not realizing how innovative they've been in terms of generating ideas or new business models that can take them in a new direction and availing of those or fully supporting those, or indeed creating new businesses which have themselves been innovative and they've created a new sector or new opportunity that's ready to be copied and then they've been overtaken. And I think, examples of that would be probably MySpace, which created a social network, which we know in today's technology world and social world, real world, is a phenomenon which is not going away. Whether it's Facebook, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's WeChat, or any of the myriad of social platforms that floats your boat, they're not going away and they've become embedded. MySpace was probably one of the forebearers of that sector, but have been left behind. Engström talked about Kodak, Nokia. They're great examples of innovative companies who, for one reason or another, either didn't recognize what they had in their IP nest and didn't fully exploit it, or grew, but then rested on their laurels and stopped being innovative. And I think the key lesson from that is innovation. I think Christine talked about it earlier. It's a culture. It's something which, if you have it, you shouldn't lose it. You should try to keep it and encourage it and keep feeding it. Because if you stop innovating, and all the more so in today's world and tomorrow's world, because the pace of change is so fast, if you stop innovating, you won't just stand still. You're going to get left behind. And I think that's probably one of the key lessons or takeaways from some of those failed examples.
Yeah, so the thing about innovation is that it's a constant experiment. But when you experiment, while at the same time you have to keep in mind that you shouldn't be always looking at practical innovations only, right? So you should innovate with a creative mind. But at the same time, when you think about it from a business point of view, you always want to have a return on that. So when you talk about returns, you need to think then about market. So along the last 9-10 years, when I see companies, what they have done, what they have invented may be very innovative, but they were way ahead of their time. I'll give you an example in the US. So some friends of mine, in 2005, 2006, they started a location-based instant messenger. So which means that, in the past we had MSN, ICQ Online, and MSN Online, Microsoft Messenger, right? Whereby you go in, you can chat with friends while online. Metro was a location-based messenger, which means that when you log on, they can tell where you are, and let's say you say, okay, you want to find, suddenly you need to iron your clothes, and you want to find, you don't have an iron right now, you're like, hey, you blast out to your friends, within, say, 3 kilometers radius. Anyone has an iron who can lend me, for example. This was 2005, 2006, but the company died. But today, we look at all the technology now, location-based services have grown and exploded. Foursquare, there's so many other companies that have been bought by other bigger companies. So when we look at innovation again, it's about making sure that you innovate, but don't innovate too far ahead of your time. So think locally. When I think back to some of the investments that I made with my fund, we invested in 2 companies that were super exciting back then. This was like, say, 5 years ago. Google had they bought a company called SketchUp, whereby it was super easy to create like 3D models and can easily spin and stuff like that. So we invested in one guy, one solo guy. It's a foreign entrepreneur from Belgium. They're based in Singapore, who invented exactly like this, but way before Google bought SketchUp. But long story short, it was ahead of his time, and not only that, the second problem there was that he was a solo founder. So my second point is that innovate with a short-term, medium-term market size in mind, but at the same time, make sure that there's a team around it to bring business-mindedness, to bring that innovation to commercial users and commercial purposes.
So for me, I have a couple of points about failure. I think with Kodak, they, and the same can be said for Xerox. Xerox invented the first personal computer. So Kodak invented digital camera, and then they said, no, our business model is currently making money on film, so we're not going to do that. That attitude from a company point of view is, I'm going to do what's right for the company. I'm going to make money based on what's right for the company. But don't forget, we're all in business. If we're in business, then the customer is king. If the customer is king, then the question should be asked, does the customer want digital cameras? And if the customer wants digital cameras, then you have to go, eventually they will want this product. How do I migrate the business there to that point when it's ready, I'm there at the forefront, rather than killing it in the 70s. So to Brandon's point about long-term, short-term thinking, short-term thinking is, I'm not making money off this, so let's kill the digital camera. The long-term thinking is when you put the customer at the core of your business, you go, he will want this at some point in time. Let me get ready so that I can introduce and start thinking about the market 10 years ahead, such that I train consumers to start thinking digital, and by the time I launch it 10 years, they're kind of ready. Because are we living in a world that's moving forward or moving backwards? You know, that's a very arrogant, self-centered way of running a company. Let's be honest. So that's one of the learnings. Because right now you're using a mobile phone, a smartphone that's about this big, right? Would you want to go back to using the brick handphone with 1 hour of standby time? No, right? Technology doesn't move backwards. So it's very presumptuous for a company to go, oh, people are not going to advance, so they don't need it. That's one. The second thing is, from a Singaporean context, we're too afraid of failure. We've been brought up in a system where we don't embrace failure. So when I worked in America, you look at the American attitude towards failure is they see failure as part of success. So in our school we teach, if you don't get the answer, you're wrong. You don't get the answer, you're wrong, you're bad, you fail. But in their schools they teach there's an answer, you get the answer wrong, never mind. But do you know the process? Do you understand the process? Because in life, the answers change. There's no 10-year series in life, and there's no 10-year series to business. There's no guaranteed formula. So we are too afraid of failure. So you look at the startup and the investors in America, sometimes they ask you, how many times have you failed? So if in Singapore you go, oh, I failed once, immediately there's a taboo. No investor will touch you because, oh, you failed once. In America, how many times have you failed? 10 times. Excellent, I'll invest in you because you will have learned your lesson. So that's a different attitude and a mindset and mind shift when it comes to business. Innovation has risks. If you want to come into this and go, I want to innovate but no risk, sure win one. It's not possible. The trick is to embrace that and then be smart about it and go, there's risk. Let's calculate the risk factors. But the biggest risk at the end of it is if you don't innovate, you will be left behind. That's a sure thing.
So Silicon Valley, if you have a failed startup before, your market value goes up. Here in Asia, if you fail before, your market value actually goes down. So it's a big difference.
Okay? So, and you see the difference between, you know, who's more innovative, who comes up with more global pattern. We'll make, yeah. That's all I can say. I'm sorry. I could go on for days. Okay, number 2, the next question. Let me hide. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, yes. What are Singaporeans most motivated by to change? Tasty subject. Tasty. Who would like to go for this? Gilbert?
So I can. I don't know. I mean, of course, we can always go back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all that. But I think, well, I think that has some value in it. We have, in the course of our work, we have seen many companies change, and about 2/3 of them are SMEs, or 3/4 of them are SMEs. And I think one of the ways which we have seen successful change, and probably a few of them, one, getting them involved in the change early. Number 2, communicating well. And number 3, and I think most importantly, sharing the gains from that change. That seems to be a motivator that will make at least the workforce level motivated to change with you and not work against you. And this is a very important fact. One of the companies that we met with, F&B company, he was sharing that he wanted his workers to embrace a certain type of service where at a certain point in the hour, they'll come out and do a dance and a song. And he was telling me in his home country, they do it no problem. In Singapore, they're just very uptight. They refuse to embrace that practice. So we were talking about it, and he said maybe a dangle a little carrot that if they do it well, if the company makes this amount of profit, we'll share the extra profit over and above the normal gains. And then 1 or 2 started getting involved, and now the company has got this dancing around. So if you go to eat in a restaurant that serves Thai food and they're dancing around, you know how they got the workers dancing. So really motivating, getting them on board early, communicating clearly, and then sharing the gains from that change would be one of the ways which I think can contribute on the ground, and how to make the workforce join you in that change.
My team work a lot with SME. So what actually we notice is, for what motivates SME most to change is they know that first, there are successful story before them. It means, for example, we're trying to, after we understand the business model of a company, and then we introduce the technology to them, they say, okay, this technology will help you. The first question that comes back to us is, are we the first one? Someone tried before? Someone in my business tried before? Because in our business, sometimes we actually have introduced technology from other sector. It can be used successfully in other sector, but never be in this sector before. So we try to introduce this technology to company in this sector. That is a question. So I think SME are pretty conservative in nature, especially when they invest money, when they invest time into a technology that they are not familiar with. They usually don't want to be the first. So what we have seen, what we're trying to do is we're trying to convince the SME that we are here to help them, we are here with them all the way to motivate them to adopt this change. So you ask me, from the experience that we have gathered, they don't want to be the first. They want to know their successful factor before them, before they are willing to change their way of doing business.
No, Brendan, I'm forcing you.
I guess trick question for the Irish guy then. I think, whilst every nationality or region of nationalities in some cases have we all have our own idiosyncrasies, and but I think change, and particularly change in the workforce, regardless of what type of workforce or industry it is, or work sector or industry it is, I think